everyone, I'm Wendell Jones, and welcome to this edition of our program, Jones and Company. On this program, we examine the national issues of the Bahamas, and today on our program, we are going to have a discussion on something that is concerning the environment. Over the last several days, we've been hearing a lot about Lighthouse Point in Eleuthera. And I had the good fortune of meeting 3 students from the Central High School in Eleuthera on a radio program, and they discussed their concerns about the environment in Eleuthera. But today on our program, we are pleased to have Ms. Sam Duncombe. She has been involved with the environment for a lot of years. One of the directors of Re-Earth, and she has worked to save many places in our country, like Clifton. And so it's a pleasure to have her on our program today. Sam Duncombe, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Godfrey, it's nice to see you here today.
Thank you. My former neighbor. My husband and I went to school together many years ago. And her brother-in-law.
Very good. Sam Duncombe, you have been, as I said, active on many fronts. And let me ask you, even before we start talking about Eleuthera, how concerned are Bahamians generally about the issues that you raise with respect to the environment?
Well, I think every issue gets its own following. Some people care about energy, which is why they stood with us during the LNG campaign. With Clifton, it was very broad in terms of who joined us. We had Reverend C.B. Moss, we had Code Smith, and every person brings their own constituents to a cause. And so it really does depend on the cause. But I think in general, Bahamians are becoming much more aware and concerned about our environment. We have limited land space, limited sea space, and we are concerned about how we're going forward, because it seems like we continue to repeat all the same mistakes.
We have a huge country.
No, we don't.
One of the largest in the Caribbean, perhaps, if not number 1, number 2. And there are people who believe that we have enough in our country. When you look at the size of the islands of the Bahamas, the space that we have, over 100,000 square miles, that we have a lot to develop. And perhaps sometimes people like Sam Duncombe overreact.
I mean, I don't think that we have a lot of space. We have 5,000 square miles of land. Some of that is uninhabitable because it's wetlands or marshes. So we don't have a lot of space. We have the illusion of a lot of space because we look at the islands and we don't see the overcrowding that we have in New Providence. I mean, is that what we're looking to do? Do the same things we've done in New Providence to all of the out islands? That would be a travesty.
We say on our program often that Andros is the size of Trinidad, and Trinidad has 1.3 million people. Andros has about
10,000
to 10,000 people, and again. That we overreact. We go to the southeastern islands a lot, places like Acklands, that is 3 times the size of New Providence, where you have a population of about 400 people, if that. And then you go over the way to Mayaguana, and it's a huge island, and you have 220 people.
They have clean air, clean water. They can fish without any worries about polluted fish that they're eating. So this is not about not developing. This is about developing sustainably and to be respectful to the communities that developments are going into and being respectful to the environment. Because whether we like it or not, we depend on the environment to live. We fish, we eat, drink water, clean air. All of those things are essential that the earth provides for us. If we continue to pollute all of those ecosystems and essential things that we need, what are we leaving at the end of the day for, you know, future generations? We're not thinking about climate change. We're not thinking about sea level rising and impacting freshwater resources. That's not on the map in most people's minds, and it should be in the minds of our politicians, because ultimately they are the ones who approve or don't approve developments, and we need to start understanding the relationship we have with the environment. For example, if you take out mangroves and a hurricane comes, your land is much more likely to be severely damaged because those mangroves are a buffer to wave action. So not only are mangroves a great buffer for wave action, they are nurseries for all the fish that we catch. So if we continue to take all those systems out, at the end of the day, you know, 50, 100, 200 years down the road, what are future Bahamians going to actually have to be able to live on, and to not just to live, to thrive? Because you don't want to just exist. You want to be able to enjoy where you live and appreciate where you live. And that's not happening at this rate.
Ms. Duncombe,
Yes.
I'm concerned about the environmental community and the issues they take up. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
We seem to be a country only concerned about the environment that attracts tourism. All right? You talk about the mangrove areas, these offshore islands, right? But what about the proliferation of these dump yards in New Providence right here? That is blighting residential areas, all right? I don't hear the environmental community talking about that, all right? And that is where we live as Bahamians, right? That is where we as Bahamians need to be educated on the importance of the environment, not just to satisfy the tourists, but to enhance our quality of life.
I totally agree with you, and I don't know if you're aware of raising awareness about the Bahamian landfill. That's another local group that also supports what we're doing.
I'm talking about these dump.
I know,
you
but
go, there's a proliferation.
They were specifically formed because of the dump fires at the main dump. Now, I get where you're coming from in terms of the garbage all over the place, and believe me, I've been picking up garbage for 28 years. Other people's garbage off the beach, off the side of the road, it doesn't matter where I find it, I pick it up. And you know, there's a fantastic man on Facebook who goes around and he videos all these same places that you're talking about. His name is Konkole. And the thing is that, you know, we are involved in sharing the stuff he does to help bring awareness about, you know, when you put your trash there, you know, you create not only an eyesore, it's bad for the communities that are being dumped on, because let's face it, who wants to go outside and see trash everywhere?
See, I'm talking about more than trash, right? If you go down,
dumping.
If you go down Claris Road, right?
Dumping,
You see a huge,
fridges, stoves,
huge car.
I know.
Right? You go on Soldier Road, right?
Right.
You go all over the urban areas in New Providence. You see these huge areas where cars are dumped.
I can take you to several places that I'm aware of where people go and dump their mattresses, their couches. I get where you're coming from, and I'm totally on board with you. The thing is that, okay, number one, if you don't see somebody doing it, how do you follow up to figure out who's doing it? You know, like we would have to have eyes on every single corner to be able to combat that. The thing is that if you see somebody doing that, you should call the environmental health and report them.
You come into customs now, you come to this country, and they charge you a levy.
Yeah.
All right? And I understand that levy is supposed to be used to help clean up, you know, heavy metals, debris, right?
Right.
Are you satisfied that that levy is being used in that fashion?
No, I don't. I am not satisfied, but then I'm not satisfied with a lot of the things that the government is responsible for. I think that, you know, we seem to be going on and on and on like it's business as usual, and it's not business as usual. There's so much science that has come out in the past 25 years that talks to the preservation of the environment, not only for the environment's sake, for the birds and the fishes and the trees, but for us. Because if we're not looking at it holistically to understand that anything we do to the environment is impacting us, then, but I've been doing this for a long time. There has been an uptick in terms of the number of people young people that I'm seeing going off and studying environmental sciences and coming back here to work, which is really very exciting. But we do need to do more. And in terms of the dumping, unless you catch somebody dumping, the only thing you can do is go behind them and clean it up. That's unfortunately what the situation is. If you see it, record it, report it.
Sam Duncombe, let's talk about Lighthouse Point.
Okay.
That is your latest project, I assume.
Yes.
I know that you are involved with many initiatives, but the one that is now catching the attention of a whole lot of people is Lighthouse Point. What is Lighthouse Point in Eleuthera?
Okay, so Lighthouse Point is the most southern tip of Eleuthera. It's not a key, it's part of the mainland. It was purchased, I think, in 2007 by the Related Group, which is a development group out of South Florida. It was purchased from the Baker estate and has basically been in their hands since that time. In around 2007, just after they bought the property, they had a huge scale development planned for it, and then the market crashed and the development went away. And that is when basically One Eleuthera was born. And under the leadership of Sean Ingram, they've actually created a plan that talks to the entire of the southern Eleuthera communities. And they've been doing a lot of work over the last 6 years in terms of helping the people in the community. They do training with them. They've purchased the Rocksound Club and have turned it into a training center. They've got fire stations. They've got emergency services. They've created a credit union. They've helped with the Cancer Society in Eleuthera as well. They've restored 200-year-old buildings as libraries, community centers, as art centers. So we're talking about an organization that essentially has proven in the last 6 years that they are about the community. They do listen to what the community needs and tries to help them achieve their goals. And so when we talk about Lighthouse Point, and as most people know now, Disney has its eye on it for a cruise port. What One Eleuthera wants to do is to preserve Lighthouse Point, which is about 700 acres, as a national park, to put some commerce on it so that it can pay for itself, to keep it open and accessible to all the public all the time, something that Disney would not do. If Disney took over Lighthouse Point, you would no longer be able to go to the southern tip of Eleuthera. And if you can recall, back in early 2000s, we were fighting the Clifton Key developers over the same issue. We wouldn't have access to the plantation ruins, we wouldn't have access to the beaches, we wouldn't have access to any of that. This is the same thing. Why do we continue to repeat the same mistakes? Now, Clifton was eventually saved, so that was fantastic. And this is another site that needs to be saved, and I'm sure there are dozens and dozens of sites in the Bahamas that require the same love and attention that Lighthouse Point is getting right now.
Okay, let's take a break here. Godfrey has a question for you on Lighthouse Point, and I have some more for you as well. Sam Duncombe, an environmental activist, our guest on the program today. We'll come right back.